in like 5 seconds. No, sorry, 25 seconds.
20.
My math is off this morning. It's not even morning.
15
This
seconds.
evening.
Let's do this.
10, 9,
8, 7,
6,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1. And good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to B-Roll, the tech and gaming news show, brought to you on the UF Disciple channel by Brett, right there, and Byron.
Somewhere here.
Yeah, I don't usually mention my name on my videos, but my name's Brett. This is Byron, my good friend. Invited him over here. We've been planning to do this for like January?
As long as it takes to give birth to a baby.
Yeah, January. So like 9 months.
Like, it's pretty bad.
I think we wanted to have our first show done in March. What's taking so long?
Life.
Fair enough. That's not okay. So
we're here. We've
here.
made it.
We've made it.
It's been 9 months coming, and we've started the show. So, why don't you speak a little bit about what's B-Roll?
What is B-Roll? B-Roll, I already said it. It's the gaming and tech news show. It's going to be weekly on Tuesdays for now. That's the plan.
Every week?
Every week? Can you commit to that?
I'm going to try, guys.
Can we shake on this, like, on stream?
On stream.
You guys have evidence.
Every Tuesday at 10 p.m.
Every Tuesday.
GMT+2.
GMT +2, South African Standard Time. We are here. So we're going to be discussing just tech news that happens throughout the week, as well as gaming and eSports stuff, which Byron is more going to be covering because he plays more video games than I do.
Probably. I've actually been involved with eSports titles for probably about a year now.
That's true, because you're the owner of Game Arena.
Yes, I am the owner of Game Arena.
There we go.
Which is pretty cool.
Can you explain what Game Arena is for everybody who's watching?
Was and is, because it's kind of changed a little bit. So
fair enough, as entities do.
Exactly. So Game Arena basically started off as like an esports platform in South Africa for getting titles going. There was only Arena in the Digital Gaming League, and nothing much else was happening.
Yeah.
And so we basically just decided to start doing more stuff. And since then, moved more into doing technology kind of related things now. And on the 1st of September, we opened up a website, gamerina.co.za. And basically reviews, news, that kind of thing. What Brett does, a little bit more, a little bit less in other ways.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so we'll have that aspect, the tech, the gaming, the esports, and then also from time to time, since I focus on product reviews on my channel, we might have some fantastic goodies to unbox live on stream. So that'll be coming in just a little bit. All right, do you want to dive into the first topic, or do you want to say more about yourself?
No, man, let's get this started.
Okay, so let's go.
It's kind of taking 9 months, right? Okay, so the first thing is AMD's 7th gen APUs.
All right, so just give me a moment. I'm actually going to post the link into the YouTube chat. I actually want to say Twitch chat because I watch Wayne Show all the time, and that's all they say. But there we go.
Awesome, I've got it on
I
screen.
just closed up the chat. Fantastic.
I've got it on screen, guys.
All right, cool. There we go. All right, so we have AMD's new 7th gen APUs, which I am a fan of because I currently I have the A10 7850K. Like, it just blows the Intel HD 530 out of the water. Like, the 6700K cannot compete with not even the top of the line APU that AMD has to offer. So that they're bringing in new ones is a good thing.
Look, and that's not the only thing. I mean, this is now AMD's foray into DDR4. Like, this has literally been roughly 3 to 4 years coming now, where since
Intel's had it since Sandy Bridge E, right?
Yes.
On the
Enthusiast.
extreme, Enthusiast, high-end desktop, HEDT.
X99.
Yes. Okay, so
And,
DDR4 has been around for a while, and now AMD is finally getting around to implementing it into their new APUs, which will launch today, I think, if that's correct.
And look, it's about time. I mean, DDR4 prices are incredibly cheap at the moment. You can pick up DDR3 for practically the same price as DDR4, so why go DDR3? It's as simple as that.
Right.
And that's not the only thing. PCI Express 3.0, USB 3.1 Gen 2. We don't yet know if it's Thunderbolt. And then also NVMe storage. Now, the thing is, PCI Express 2 versus PCI Express 3 in terms of graphics cards, that kind of thing, look, it doesn't really matter. But I think the main reason for PCI Express 3 now is for storage solutions.
Right, I mean, NVMe, like, that can saturate a PCIe 3.0, like...
Completely.
Like, was it 2.5 gigabytes you can get on a good NVMe drive? Like, that's insane.
And I mean, like, the old sort of like SATA 6, that kind of thing, 550 at most. And that's, like, not even really going to happen.
Right, yeah. But the interesting thing for me is that they're bringing in all of these. Was that more? Sorry.
No, go back.
I want to look at the article just a little bit more. So they're bringing in all of these new technologies, but the interesting thing is they're not changing the architecture on which they're making these APUs. This is still 28 nanometer, as was Godavari and Kaveri. Kaveri, that's the right one. So they're still using the 28 nanometer architecture. They're not even bringing Zen into the equation, but they're putting it on the AM4 platform. So like, it's new, but it's still not.
Look, it's a bit confusing. I mean, like we're not really going an entire new architecture realistically in terms of actually the processor as well.
Right.
I mean, now it's kind of like going, let's say, a 5 to 10% increase in performance in processing, but they're now adding everything that's overdue. So realistically, I don't see this as an announcement like, oh, look at all these new things.
Right.
It's more like we're finally there as well. I mean, here's the thing. Say someone's looking for the highest end CPU, sure, they've got the 6700, 6800, etc.
Yeah.
If someone's going for a budget build, it's kind of hard sometimes to decide, like, am I going to go AMD or am I going to go Intel? Because AMD is usually actually better at a budget point.
Right, but then you lose out on like everything else.
Everything.
Like
That's
you
the
can't get
thing.
NVMe drives, you can't have Thunderbolt support. What AMD is lacking a few other features. DDR4.
Look,
I mean, that's not going to make a huge difference in terms of it, but with APUs. So I did a video examining how do you increase the performance on an AMD APU. The main thing was going from single channel to dual channel, but then RAM speed makes a huge difference. Like I'm actually, ooh, that would be a good video examining the RAM speed effects going from 2133 to 3200 on an APU because like
now you have DDR4 support.
it should be
utilizing-
massive at this point. Yeah.
That's very true.
Cool. All right. So moving on to the next article, talking about the other team, Team Green. I'll post this in the YouTube chat as well.
Just give me a second.
Go ahead.
Cool.
All right. So we are going to be talking about the GTX 1050 alleged specification leaks, although they look pretty legit from everything that I can see. It doesn't seem overhyped, so it's like not really a. I wouldn't say it's a leak that is suspicious.
Look, it's true. I mean, generally, the leaks that everyone's worried about is the 80 series, the Titan, that kind of thing.
Right.
This is kind of the first time in a while I've seen where the 50 series has taken. I mean, no one really even cares, to be honest. That's the thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Hold on. The reason nobody cares is because NVIDIA. What are they doing? Like, not even NVIDIA. What has been going on with this GPU release cycle? Like, the 1080 drops like a week before Computex. Like the announcement doesn't happen at Computex. Intel announces Broadwell E at Computex, but Nvidia's just like, nah, we're going to do our own event, and then they just show off the GPUs at Computex. But like then the 1070 comes out later, then they have the 1060 a little bit later, then they're like, oh, we have a 3 GB 1060. And
But
then
also probably only because of AMD, let's be honest.
I mean, fair enough, but then like they're now announcing they haven't announced it yet, but now they're bringing out the 1050 when they just announced Mobile Pascal. Like the Titan XP gets announced in like the most unceremonious way possible,
It was just a video on YouTube. I think that was it.
It's like, hey guys, it's coming.
But I mean, this is even the thing. Like for me, that what doesn't make sense is so could they have not either released, let's say, this before mobile, or then just waited like a week or whatever to announce mobile? Because now we've got the 1060, 70, and 80 in mobile, and this is like the perfect card for mobile.
It's 75 watts. 75 watt TV,
It's crazy.
Which means that it should be able to just run on a PCI Express slot. We'll get back to that just a little bit later. But like a friggin' power efficient card, and they don't announce it with the mobile platform? Like what?
Look, at the same time, we don't even know that maybe it's just going to be a dual release. It might even be 1050s announced in both notebook and.
But why wouldn't they just do it 2 weeks ago when they announced the mobile platform? Like that's the part that confuses me about all of this.
I actually wish that happened. I mean, so look, we've got two decent-ish notebooks right here. 5th generation i7, 6th generation i7, 970M, 960M.
Right.
They run all the latest games, but I mean, both of us, we're pretty jealous. We want a 10 series right now. Now, the biggest issue at the moment is that 10 series mobile is expensive. I mean, it's crazy. It's like you're going to spend basically $2,000, 30,000 Rand for what we used to spend 20,000 Rand on. And now it's just because it's 10 series. So
can you convert that to dollars?
Okay, so like rand, let's say 15 rand to a dollar kind of thing. So $2,000, 30,000 rand, roughly. Now, the problem with this is that where do you go when you're upgrading $1,000 notebook? I mean, you now decide to go from a 960M to a
That's
1060.
at least $1,500.
That's crazy.
Right.
So
That's
this
a
should have
50% increase.
exactly, and just for GPU. Now, look, sure, you've got the performance increase, but
It's worth the money,
realistically,
but like the budgetary constraints there.
yeah, like you want to get the next gen, but not spend that much.
Correct.
And now this is the thing: like, should they not be announcing 1050 mobile? I mean, sure, in enthusiast grade PCs, we've got 1070, 1080, that kind of thing,
Right.
and we already have AMD cards. We've got the 470, we've got the 480, and now I think even the
I think the
460.
470 is. Didn't AMD release a 470 mobile?
Yes, they did. That was announced last week. I did see that.
Okay.
But then again, I can guarantee that card's not 75 watt.
It's true. Yeah. That's
I don't
the.
know, man.
I have issues with what AMD has done as well. Like the power performance per watt that AMD was pushing well before Polaris launched, and then it launches and it's just like, yeah, the Crossfire RX 480s draws more power than a 1070, and it's just as powerful. That's not
Look,
performance per watt.
speaking
Getting
of
back to the 1050.
yeah,
Or
speaking of the
you have something
1050,
else.
how fast is this card realistically? So we've got the 1060 that's let's say between a 970 and a 980 somewhere there, and
Okay.
just looking at the CUDA cores alone, this
Right.
is 60% of the CUDA cores of a 1060. So
Okay.
we're looking at a card that's probably sitting let's say at stock under a 970, but realistically now we've got GPU boost. So we
Right.
don't even know how far this is going to go. And you were speaking about the PCI Express lane. So you got 75 watts. What do you think the implication of that's going to be when it comes to overclocking?
Well, if it's the Founders Edition and they don't include an extra PCIe power input, I don't like. Is the 75 watt TDP with the stated boost clock, or is that with the GPU boost 3.0 factored in? Because like the what was it the 1080 had a boost clock of somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1675. And then people were finding the founders editions could boost up to like 1780. Like that's going to put it over the 75 watt threshold for PCI Express, which AMD got crapped on for doing with the Polaris cards.
They sorted it out,
I mean,
thankfully.
they did sort it out, but like AMD got crapped on. Is GPU Boost 3.0 actually going to be even able to do that? Like, is it going to be able to stay within the 75 watt TDP, or is it going to like I don't know. Like, there's not enough in this article to really speculate enough on what's gonna happen, but like Pascal has been some really good overclocks in terms of like what NVIDIA is releasing them at. Like, oh, it has a 1600 megahertz base clock, but then you can easily get it up to 2050 megahertz on any card.
But look, when you're speaking of, let's say, 50 series, 40 series, let's not go down there, that kind
Right.
of thing.
I mean, it's a different chip. Like, it's the GP 107. It's not the
That's
GP
true.
102
But not only that,
or
look,
104.
you usually don't really care too much about the overclocking potential
On a
as much as
on
a
a
1080.
1050,
Let's put
yeah,
it that
right, right,
way.
right.
You know, so
But like that's the thing. So like you were saying that the 1050 should be less than a 970. Did you get to that?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
So it should be slightly less, but then if it can overclock like the rest of the Pascal cards, you're going to be paying less than a 970 price for a card that can push itself well beyond the 970.
That's awesome. But now what about the 470? I mean, what is this card actually going to be competing against? Is it going to be competing against a 460 or a 470? Because 470 is what, $200?
I think the aftermarket cards are. I think it came in at like 175, 180.
And this is going to be like $150, maybe 175 realistically when it comes to third party as well. So the
Right.
470 might even be a faster card. I mean, you're talking about a card that's 60% of the amount of CUDA cores out of a 1060. We don't
Right.
know the clock speeds. A lot of this stuff is theoretical. It could change.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, I mean, is this a card that makes sense?
I mean, it just depends on the price. Like every card makes sense as long as you price it correctly. That's the rant I went on in my Gaming XRX 480 review. Was like this is priced either the same or just higher than the GTX 1060 Gaming X, but in a lot of games it performs worse. I mean, there are games where it performs better, but like unless you're sticking to those titles, you're not getting that performance. So like pricing that card higher doesn't really make sense. But if you priced it lower, it absolutely does. The RX 480 has its place. The GTX 1060 has its place. It's just why are they releasing it like this? And then like if it comes in at the $150 price point, I think that's fine because I think the RX 460 is at like the 120, and then if you have the 180 to 200 with the RX 470, that seems about right.
And look, let's be honest, Nvidia's generally not been the guys to be always price per performance.
Right.
I mean, there's always been a premium on Nvidia. So if it's $150, look, it's a good card. It just doesn't really make sense right now. It doesn't make sense the way they announced it because they haven't even announced it yet.
Right.
I mean, it should have been announced the same time as mobile. It makes so much sense in mobile. 75 watts, low power low power usage.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. Do you like this whole Nvidia GPU release cycle freaks me out. Do you think this is fake because like the 1050 is being announced just after they release the 1050 Ti or the 1063 gigabyte edition, however you want to dub it, and then the mobile? Like, do you think it's possible that this report is just like somebody just put it out there and it's not even relevant? Like they're not actually going to release a 1050.
I don't know. Like, I mean, the thing is, there's always been a 50 series. Everything I've
Fair
always
enough.
remembered, there's been a 50, and then even below that, like I said, we don't really go there. I mean, they're not really gaming.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it does make sense. I mean, we're in an era where we have VR. So they say a 970 is supposed to be the minimum requirement recommended spec for VR.
Yeah.
You're now talking about a card at its 50, so X50 series.
Yeah.
That's the performance of roughly a 970. That does make sense. I mean, the 1060 is an expensive card. That's not the cheapest card that I'm used to in terms of pricing in a series of Nvidia.
Right.
So I do understand that like a 1050 makes a lot of
But
sense.
isn't that where the 1063 gigabyte edition comes in?
But what's the price?
I don't even know the US price anymore, but like 3,500 rand. So that would put it at okay, just over $200.
But Nvidia, even though Nvidia's not always been the best price per performance in terms of like under 3,000 rand kind of thing,
Right.
they've had cards. They've had
Okay.
cards from 700 rand all the way to too much money.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like I don't see a scenario where they stick to a 1060 as being the lowest end.
Right.
And the thing is, like, you need to remember as well is, sure, we can buy a 950 today for a pretty good price, but it's going to be phased out.
Let me see that. How much is it? Keep talking. I'm gonna look at how much.
See, that's the thing. Like, you need to phase out the old cards. You need to
Right.
think of the new series, and at some stage, someone's only going to have 1,500, 2,000 rand to spend on a new card. They're not going to get the performance of a 1060, but there needs to be something that fills that
Right.
gap.
You can basically get a 950 for 3,000 rand right now, which is just 400 rand less than a 1063 gigabyte.
That is terrible.
Right. Okay, so if it came in like the 2,200, 2,500 rand mark, it would
Even 2,750, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, fair enough. But why, like, let's speculate on Nvidia's like screwed up release cycle with all of this. Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that AMD has been gaining market share lately? Like,
We actually have an article on that.
right. Let me pull that one up.
Look,
So I think it's what they went from 18% to 29% within the span of a year.
eh,
Let me see.
look, okay, I think it's definitely a part of it.
Right.
Although at the same time, I mean, I don't even necessarily think it's because of the 470 and the 480. I know mining obviously has influenced a lot of this. People have
Mining?
been, not Bitcoin, cryptocurrency mining, so
Okay.
Ethereum, that kind of thing.
Right.
People have been buying up AMD cards because they perform better at mining, and it's basically that.
Right.
But that's not the only reason. I mean, there's people that like AMD cards. There's a lot of AMD cards that perform very well for their price.
Right. Well, and then also you have certain game titles like Deus Ex, whatever you want to call it, that like the RX 480 basically performs on par with the 1070. And
Which is crazy.
right, and like there are advantages to having an AMD card for sure, but like how did they double in market share over the last year? Like wasn't the 3 series just a rebadge of the 2 series? So
Pretty
like
much.
why were they selling better?
Well, don't even forget some of the 2 series was even a rebadge of some of the 7 series.
Right.
Look, I think mining influenced it a lot, obviously, and it's not only that. It just comes down to obviously some of the issues that happened with Nvidia with DirectX 12. I mean, a lot of people were wondering, should I adopt and buy a 10 series card when it doesn't have asynchronous compute?
But doesn't it? Okay, so this
It does, but doesn't. I mean, it's
So this
everyone's
is-
saying it's software wise.
for I
But
guess.
here's my
It
argument.
depends on what article you read, though. Like
That's
that's
true.
the issue that I've been having. Like you have all of the AMD fanboys saying Nvidia doesn't support hardware asynchronous compute, but then I've also read articles where like No, it actually does, and it's just impossible to say on either side. But like my Battlefield 1 performance data shows, do not
Negative.
use DirectX 12 with an NVIDIA GPU. It is not going to end well for you.
Look, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the exact answer, but
Right.
realistically, the way I see it right now is that an AMD card, you know what you're buying. I
Right.
mean, it's always been that way. You buy an AMD card, you get the performance now with a few drivers, tweaks, that kind of thing. It always just gets better.
Right.
Nvidia, on the other hand, I mean, I have Nvidia in all my systems, but there's been times where they kind of like kill the card off. I mean,
Exactly.
9 series came out,
Yeah.
Project Cars was released, and it couldn't even run on a 780. A 960 was outperforming a 780. That should make no sense.
Right.
So the thing is, like, a lot of people are trusting AMD
But
more.
isn't that happening right now with the 1060 outperforming the 980 and it has nothing to do with drivers? It just
Yes.
has to do with the generation. But
No. Like, you see, the thing is, they're supporting the newer cards, and everyone is starting to trust AMD more because
they're
there's
not
none of this
screwing over
extra
the
stuff.
customer
Yes, like,
afterwards.
let's look at Nvidia. Okay, G-Sync. It works on Nvidia. It doesn't work on AMD.
Right.
FreeSync works on both.
No, FreeSync doesn't work on NVIDIA codes as far as
Does
I know.
okay? My mistake then. But okay, sure. Let's just take GameWorks.
It's supposed
Okay.
to. I don't think NVIDIA supports it. I think AMD
they cut
created-
it out, yes.
Right.
But it is open source. That's what I'm trying to get.
Right.
Now, everything AMD does, they usually go open source. NVIDIA closes down the ecosystem, and they're like, okay, we have GameWorks, we've got Hayworks, we've got all these things, and they kind of like push it down on AMD. And that's the thing. Like, people want to support the underdog. People want to support the guy that's not lying to them.
Right.
And it's working for AMD.
Okay, let's get into that topic then. You think AMD hasn't been lying to consumers? What happened with Bulldozer and Excavator?
Yeah,
what
true.
Happened with
Look,
the FX series?
it was supposed to be an 8-core processor, ended up not
Not
really being
even that, but like, oh, it's going to be fantastic, and then it comes out and it like, yes, it does well for its time, but then Intel just continues to like actually innovate.
But then
Which is why our first article is even about the fact that AMD is bringing DDR4 to the mainstream.
But that's true. But then in the same time, like, what is your take on like the new AMD cards that are coming out? I think it said it's going to be on par, clock for clock, with like a 6900K, the Zen, right? Yeah. Do you realistically think that the benchmarks that they released is going to be like accurate?
I don't know. That's the hard part. Like, you're arguing that AMD doesn't lie to people.
I don't know.
Like, I don't know.
Look, to be fair, I mean, we got Intel and we got Nvidia, right? But in terms of AMD, their GPUs and their CPUs are still two different markets.
That is true, because I think the GPU is under the Radeon Technologies group, which is not AMD CPU. So there's that.
Speaking of processors,
but people would. I mean, I know that if I wasn't deep into the tech scene, I wouldn't differentiate. I would say AMD makes the CPUs and AMD makes the GPUs. If I put them together, they're obviously going to work better than getting Intel and NVIDIA.
Yeah, and then
name brand recognition. That's it.
Let's not mention that AMD brought out that other little system that ended up having an Intel processor. You remember that?
No.
When they're showing off Fury? When they first showed off Fury, they made this tiny little build, and it used an Intel processor.
Seriously.
That's pretty bad. Listen, moving on. So speaking of processors, speaking of like power efficiency, that kind of thing.
Right.
PAX. So what happened there?
Linus went into a Razer display and checked out a 7th gen CPU within the new Razer Blade Stealth. So basically, you want to switch back over to the main?
Sure.
I'll post the link in the YouTube chat, but it's basically just the YouTube video of Linus. Linus going through. Come on. There we go. Linus going through the Razer booth at PAX West. And he checks out their new Razer Blade Stealth, and he's like, oh, this probably has Kaby Lake, and it does. It has a 7500U, which we don't really know a whole lot about. Just that it's a 7500U, has a base clock of 2.7 gigahertz, and up to a 3.5 boost, which is basically the clock speed that's on the 5700 HQ. But like
This is dual core with hyper threading.
Is it?
That's what he mentioned in the video, didn't he?
Did he? No, I watched and I didn't hear him mention the core count at all, which frustrates me because it was just like it's like.
Well, with it being a U series, it's more than likely.
Right, but wouldn't with the 7th generation they bring in a quad core U series? Like that's the part that's frustrating to me. Like, yeah, you have the Razer core for the Razer Blade Stealth, but you still only have a dual core CPU. Like that's not going to perform well in every single game. Like why? Like why are there no quad core U series?
Power efficiency.
It's
the excuse. Let's be honest. I mean, we're looking at CPUs that are under 30 watts.
Right.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
They have to cut it down somehow. You can't get a quad core 8 thread
why not?
Two,
No,
3
no,
gigahertz.
I don't buy that for a
10.
second. I don't
Why?
buy that for a second because the mini PCs that have been coming out. Yeah, the Asus QM1 that I had for testing, that was a quad core. It's a little tiny stick running quad cores. My phone has an octa-core processor.
Yeah, but
Don't tell me they can't have quad cores.
they're not the same.
I know.
They're not the same.
I know.
Let's not go there.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, I think let's open the box.
You think it's time?
Let's open the box.
Do you guys want to see a box opening? I'm not going to wait for your answer because there's the delay in the stream. All right, we'll do that one later. All right. So speaking of AMD versus NVIDIA, up first, thanks to our friends at ASUS South Africa, we have the Strix RX 470 to be unboxed. There we go. Dang it. Is this like ASUS duct tape? What? I don't even know how to cut this. It looks like it... What is... That's a little flap. I have technical difficulties with... This is why I'm not an unboxing channel. This is... No.
That's why you should watch Unbox Therapy.
You know, I really don't like doing... Like, live unboxings, it's fine. Like, you get to see my initial impression and whatever. But, like... scripted unboxing videos or ones that I have to produce, I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing that. Alright, so here's the GPU. Let's see what accessories we have. The same like stick-on badge things that you could put on the card. I'm not sure. Oh, they have like little slots for that. We'll see that later. Velcro straps. Very cool.
To be honest, this is something I actually like. I just got the Gigabyte 1070
Yeah.
and it's got that orange color and I can't change it.
Okay, but it looks like this is only orange. So you either get nothing or you
He's
get
joking.
orange. Alright. Let's open this. Alright, I guess I should peel the plastic off. I think I'm the first one to have this.
Yeah.
That's actually there's no backplate. That's pretty rare for me.
This looks
Getting a
more
review sample first.
a lot more like their dual design than the normal Strix design. I mean, it's only 2 fans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the RX 470, I don't think it puts out that much heat, so should totally be fine. This isn't working as well as I wanted it to. There we go. Let me put that there. This is like ripping as I peel it. I think ASUS needs to work on their plastic, their plastic design. Oh, come on. Like at every corner, it's like they stuck on a million little pieces.
At least you didn't have to take it off once.
There we go. That's true. And then there's one more right here. Where I assume that's an RGB logo right there. Okay, so we have dual DVI, a single HDMI 2, a DisplayPort 1.3, 1.4. I don't even know because 1.4 is not even out yet. Single 6-pin right there, and then the ASUS. You can attach your chassis fans to that fan header that's on the GPU and it won't spin up unless your computer's under load. When it detects that the GPU is under load, that's when that'll spin up. So that's actually really helpful.
Is this the same I/O as the reference design?
I don't know what the reference design is. I never got a reference 470.
Is it? Because I remember with the 80, there
the
wasn't...
480, there's no DVI.
Yeah, which
doesn't make any
frustrating.
sense. Yep. All right. So the wing blade fans, they
Let's get a
probably stay
close-up
off.
on that.
Yeah, they probably stay off under 65, 60 degrees somewhere in there. Yeah. Looks like they only have one area where it's RGB. All right. And then GPU reinforcement bracket along the top there. Cool. All right. Drop that in the box.
Brett, speaking of another thing, I mean,
Right. Let's speak.
complaining about little things on the graphics card, like the
Such
plastic.
Yep.
Okay? You now want to tell Asus that. What happened?
I'm not going to tell them
No,
that.
no. What I mean is,
I'm
like,
not even going to include that in my review.
when you're trying to actually say something to, like, customer support wise,
Okay.
you're trying to speak to people.
Right.
Tell me what happened with MTN this week. I mean, there was an issue. Someone had something, and we need to speak about it, man.
All right. So MTN is a local telecom in South Africa. So basically, like your Verizon, your Sprint, your Orange, elsewhere, or what other regions? I don't know. O2 is that one? Anyways, I don't know European. Bell Canada, I think that's one. Regardless, so
An ISP.
a telecom, it's different. But so as you can see from the article, what happened was a specific customer used some pretty flagrant language to express their displeasure with MTN's customer service. And MTN's customer service responded in the most MTN way possible with a little jife of an eye roll. And fortunately, this representative for MTN has the initials BM, also known as bowel movement, just indicating the poor customer service that's coming out of this.
But this has been something that's been going on a lot lately. I mean, big companies that are out there, you have an issue with the company and you speak to the actual technical support or
Right.
support end, and they're misinterpreted. This is the problem that we have today, that it's humans that are working there. Someone's going to work there, have a bad day, and do something like this. Like, what do you think about this? Should
Okay.
Twitter exist? Should people be using Twitter for customer support?
Are they having a bad day? Or is this just them?
It's probably just this guy. I mean, BM. Let's not go there.
I don't know.
What do you think about it? I mean, with people,
Like it's not even like should Twitter have companies on it? It's just like at one point, like, do you outsource this kind of stuff? Like, do you outsource your company's profile management to somebody who can actually handle it? Like, to somebody who is trained in customer support, somebody who's trained in dealing with people on social media. Because, like, clearly this person knows how to use a GIF on Twitter. Like, they can actually do that. But are they trained in the customer support area, or are they just an employee of MTN who just goes ahead and posts whenever they want to?
I think realistically, with a company this big,
Yeah.
you should know what you're doing. I mean, MTN their stock is listed. You know,
Yeah.
this is not a small company. You're not going to go work there and be in charge of their Twitter and be able to just put whatever you want on there.
But clearly, like,
And they did though. That's
did
the
you
problem.
even see their response? Did you even see their response on Facebook? They were just like, "Oh, sorry." They didn't even take down the tweet.
But do you
tweet
think
is
people
still
should
up.
apologize? Do you think companies should apologize
Do I
to
think
customers?
companies should apologize for messing up? It depends.
Depends on.
They should. Like, if they're screwing up, I really think so. Like,
But look, okay. Here's another thing. Thinking of someone that screwed up recently. Hello Games.
okay,
I mean, we need to go there.
No Man's
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Lie.
No Man's Lie.
One Man's Lie.
What do you think about the game? I mean, $60 game released for PlayStation and PC.
Yeah.
And it's procedurally generated universe, and you're supposed to be able to explore and survive and all this kind of stuff. And there was promises. There were many promises made by this company.
You know, I get the game. I get it. The thing that ticked me off on release was that I benchmarked it on a GTX 1080, and my frames were dropping to 0. Like, in order for me to do the benchmark, I had to run through it once so that the game could load and do all of its frame dropping, and then go back and do it again. Like, it had major issues upon launch. Like, in that, like, I didn't even get into the playing of it because I was just like, I don't care what features they're gonna add. If they can't support a 1080 at launch,
I mean, that's
to be like
a card people have.
play normally, then I don't care. I don't care what features you're gonna implement. That tells me that you clearly did not care about the PC market.
But is this not the case with a lot of companies? I mean, they make mistakes and kind of just brush it off.
Do you think Sean Murray and Hello Games are brushing it off? Or do you think they're taking it so personally that he's like in depression right now and like doesn't want to speak to the public?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, the guy made a ton of cash. Let's be honest.
I mean, very true. Like, what was it? The top-selling game on Steam in like quite some time.
Pretty much, and but then it tanked. That's like the player base tanked, and no one cares about the game anymore. So I don't know. This is kind of what's
people
happening.
do. So like, I've been hearing rumors around like the game industry is really shaken up with what happened with No Man's Sky. Just excuse me. The hype beforehand. Sean Murray doing all of his deceit, I guess, if that's how we want to label it. But I don't know. Do you think it would have been made better by him being on Twitter apologizing, or there's
It would have been better if he never told people what the game was supposed to have.
True. We can get into that whole list that was on Reddit about like every feature that the game was supposed to have on launch, and then it doesn't. Like two players in the same exact location, they can't see each other. There was a meme somebody posted to his Twitter page where it was just basically like people are asking him questions and he's just like, "Wow, so many of you are playing right now."
But that's
But,
when that's when you don't know what to respond.
okay,
So
like
so
if he had never said any of this in the beginning, then it would just be all on the media and everybody be like, leave this indie development team alone. Like they're a small team. Like that's been the defense of them.
would it
But
have
they're
sold as
culpable
well?
to some extent.
Would it have sold as well if he didn't say all these features? I mean, what created the hype of the game? Sean Murray's interview saying, "Oh, the game's going to have this feature," and it didn't end up having it. Now, here's the two sides of it: is
Yeah.
the game didn't have every feature, and now people hate it for it. You know. But then the other end is, if he never mentioned those features to begin with, would people have even known about the game? Would it have not just been another one of the indie games on Steam that I see there's a special and I ignore it and I carry on going?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I rock in a hard place, half a dozen on the one, 6 potatoes on the other, you know. I don't know. I don't yeah, no man's lie. I can't really I don't it's a tough thing, but like that's the issue that we kind of face right now is like everybody's culpable for what they say on social media or they say in public and then they get held accountable for it later. Like Sean Murray might have just been like, "Hey, we're thinking about this right now." He doesn't express that it's just a thought. He just like, "Oh, we're developing this," and then like it comes launch day and he's like, practically he was like, "We had to cut that feature," but he doesn't tell anybody that. And then when everybody's asking, he's just like, "So many of you are playing right now. This is amazing."
I guess maybe he didn't know what to say, to be honest. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's is a big
Well,
possibility.
I think he some of his tweets even before the game launched were like it's basically like you've raised a child and now it's time to send them off to college. You just have to see if they're
Even if
like
they're not ready.
you hope you did your best for the past 18 years or however long you've been developing the game and then you just like I want to see if normal society likes this child basically.
And look, it's had mixed reviews. I mean, some
Right.
people like the game.
I mean,
I for one,
has
I
its
got
perks.
bored. I got bored in the game.
I can't do it. Yeah.
It's not for me. But
If
I mean,
they add some of the features, I might consider it. Like for me playing with my sons, it was like it's a good experience. Like they're just like you can go from a planet to space, and there's all of these other animals. That's a dinosaur.
that's pretty.
Like it's a really amazing kids game, but you don't charge $60
$60 for a kids game, exactly. That's what Lego is for.
unless
That
you're
kind of
Disney
thing.
or Legos. Yeah.
Yeah. But look. Speaking of like Twitter, Apple as an example, basically what's going on there. I mean, Apple released phones that have had
Right.
issues. They had Bengate with the iPhone 6. People were banning them in their pockets. They had the iPhone 4 with the issues in the antenna,
yeah,
and it just
metal
switched
housing,
off.
yeah.
I mean, what has Apple done on Twitter to date? Nothing.
Well, like
Why is it okay for them?
I'm not sure it is okay with them for them. Like it became this like cult status that like people would send Steve Jobs an email and then he'd send like a 1 or 2 word reply. Like like that just happened. Like people were like, "Oh, it's Steve Jobs finally replied with no."
And then they're happy because they got an answer, even if it's not
Right.
the answer they
And
wanted.
like I don't know, Apple created this like culture of they clearly care about their products. They clearly focus on developing them well. But then they release like they do release crap sometimes. Like the iPhone 4 with its antenna, the power button on the iPhone 5 basically had to be replaced after the first year.
What about the battery life on their watch?
That's awful. Oh, there was something else I was going to say. Keep talking while I think.
Oh look, speaking of watch,
Yeah.
we just got a watch from Garmin, and let's
Yeah.
let's do an unboxing.
Okay, let me think. Well, so let's do an unboxing while I think. We're not unboxing the 1070 right now. We're unboxing the Garmin Vivo Move.
Awesome. So guys, yeah, someone from Garmin just sent this to me today, and I haven't actually got a chance to test it out yet. It's the Vivo Move activity tracker. So it's kind of like a normal timepiece. It's not a digital watch in any way.
It's actually completely analog, which is the strangest thing.
With a 1 year battery life. So I actually had a G Watch R before. Brett actually has one now. I think it's about 2 to 3 days battery life, which is not too bad, but it gets frustrating. So now you've got a smartwatch that's well smart. That actually has a year
It's
battery
an
life.
activity tracker. It's not a smartwatch.
So let's just take it out, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more.
We'll get back to the Apple Twitter thing just now.
Let's see if this is better than an Apple Watch.
Is that leather or is that?
That's Fox. Fake leather.
You know, it's faux, not fox. Okay. Is it like, can you charge this or is this
No,
non-rechargeable?
so I'm assuming it just takes like a normal watch battery. So
Okay.
here's the thing, okay, so how's this an activity tracker? It tracks your sleeping, it tracks your movement, and you can basically find out how many steps you've taken in a day. So if you see this side over here, there's a bar that fills up. So the bar will fill up with your progress bar of what percentage of steps you want to take in the day. So say you want to take 3,000 steps in a day and you only took 300, it'll go 10% up.
Okay.
Then the bar on the other side, so it's fully red at the moment, you'll see there, is basically telling you how lazy you are.
Okay.
So this is more of a watch that's like someone sitting playing games. They look at their watch, they see the red bars filled up. They know they've been lazy. They need to get off their butt.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
it's basically just a watch that encourages people to go exercise, and then you can find out afterwards how many steps you've taken. And yeah,
Does it sync via Bluetooth or anything?
it syncs
or-
via Bluetooth 4, and which is
Okay.
pretty crazy
4 or
considering.
4.1?
If I remember, it was 4.
4.1. Okay.
Well, either way,
Yeah.
considering it has a year battery life is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm actually
It's
gonna,
pretty good.
I'm gonna put it on.
Okay. Are you reviewing that? Is that what's going on?
Yes, so they asked me to review it. I've got it for about 2 weeks, and you'll see this Batman sweat and find out what the watch is like.
Okay. All right. So like Steve Jobs, let's get back to the Apple Twitter thing. Like he created the culture of like they care about their devices. Like that's it. They didn't get to the status of like cult following and everybody talking about the iPhone 7 launch tomorrow and like everybody follows everything they do even if you hate them you know what's going on with them.
Mm.
Like they didn't get there because they had poor customer service. Like they got there because like they built this like empire of like we care about our stuff and like by proxy we care about our customers. Like Steve Jobs, like he talked about knowing what the customer wanted before they even knew what they wanted and forcing it down their throat.
But do you not think they beat around the bush sometimes? Where
Absolutely.
I mean, a new iPhone comes out, they don't talk about the specs that are better than any other phone. They just talk about the specs that are unique. That people don't always care about it. They hype it up.
Okay, this is what I was thinking about. Their freaking postcards feature that they released. I think it was like with the iPhone 4, the 4S. You could send physical postcards with your iPhone.
Who's going to do that?
And then they just dropped the feature altogether. Never mentioned their failures. Like, I mean,
But they have like an almost cult like following.
right.
I mean, that's the thing. I know people that have iPhones and tablets and that kind of iPads and MacBooks, and they buy every refresh.
Yeah.
And even though it's like you're looking at these notebooks with 6th, 7th gen processors, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and decent enough graphics cards to play the latest games, they're not even playing games on them. But it's almost like this brainwash mentality where the latest one's going to be better than the previous one, and it's going to have features I don't need, but I can probably brag about them, and they just buy them. But this is the thing. It's not that they don't care about the customer. I mean, every iPhone has been better. Every iPad has been better than the previous one.
Right.
It's just compared to the competition, it's generally not better.
I mean, at this point, yes. Like, Samsung has finally caught up. Most other companies have finally caught up. Like, back in the day, it was like the iPhone 2 versus the iPhone killer, which were always completely crap. Or you look at the first iPhone, like, that was revolutionary. No other company was developing a product like that, and they come out, they release the iPhone, and they say, here it is, completely better than everything else. I mean, I still had a freaking Palm Pilot when the iPhone released.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like HTC, I think they were formerly iMate, and they had phones with better displays than the first iPhone for years.
Yeah.
I mean, Windows Mobile was since 2003 or something like
Right.
that, and I don't know. They hit
But
the
what-
market in the right way.
But was it capacitive touchscreen? Wasn't it like you had to use
It was
the stylus?
resistive.
You
It
had
was
to use the-
resistive. Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. Like going from a resistive touchscreen to capacitive was game changing,
And,
especially with the way they implemented it.
But even some of the later, well, earlier, let me put it that way, Android phones that were trying to compete with the iPhone
Yeah,
were still
like-
resistive for a while.
Right? I think it was what the HTC Hero. That was
HD2 probably thing. That was like the first kind of going between.
well,
both.
no, like the first Android phone that like basically everybody had. I think
Yeah.
it was the HTC Hero. Like had the like still the little trackball.
Trackpad in the bottom.
Yeah.
HTC Desire, yeah, we had that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think Apple takes care of their customers to some degree.
right.
I mean, even when it comes down to like warranty and that, there's those you pay a slightly extra service and then you got Apple iCare.
Yeah, you pay
So,
$100 to get an extra.
They
few
care
years
about
of
their
service.
customers, and maybe that's why to some degree they're able to have a Twitter account and never had to use it.
Right.
That they have a cult. I wouldn't call it a cult necessarily, but they have a following that people understand the products enough.
For a large portion of it, it is well deserved. Like they do design beautiful products that just flat out work. Like would I ever own an iPhone?
If I gave it to you for free.
Yes, absolutely. Especially like they do have a fantastic camera. The camera on the Moto X sucks, but like. Would I willingly choose an iPhone when I know that there's an Android equivalent? Probably not, because I like to tinker, I like to root, I like to mess with my devices. But would I buy one for my wife? Absolutely. She doesn't care to root her device, but would she use it? Would it just work? Yes. And she's owned an iPhone before because of that. Like they just flat out work. They're good. I like them.
Just the price point. I think that's the only problem.
I mean, like,
but not even
the
anymore.
Galaxy S7 is the same
yeah,
price.
that's
like,
that's
you
the
don't,
problem.
you don't. The price point isn't even a big issue on it. Yeah. All right. So,
So is that Brett saying buy an iPhone?
I'm curious. I'm really curious about the iPhone 7 launch event tomorrow. Like I.
It's not going to explode though, right?
Hopefully. But like even getting back to the iPhone 6s, like they Apple did make improvements. Like, but what did Linus find out when he did his review? They upgraded the NAND flash. They designed their own NAND flash for the iPhone 6s.
Wasn't it the fastest storage in any phone?
They didn't say anything about it in their marketing material. They just made it better. They made it better than any Samsung phone, and then they didn't mention it, which is fantastic. But like,
maybe that's the right way to do it. Just continuously upgrade your products
and only talk about the features that everybody cares about, but still work on the features that nobody does.
Maybe.
Fair enough. All right. Speaking of things that most people won't care about, let's go on to this next article about mini STX form factor from Silverstone. So this is particularly of interest to me, mainly because my first YouTube video is actually about the Silverstone RVZ01 Mini ITX build. So I have like this. I don't even know if it's deserved, whatever. Like I have this fond affection for Silverstone at this point, just because like that video has over 10,000 views, and it was my first one. I made it with my wife. It was beautiful. Anyways, Mini STX, this chassis itself comes in at 155 by 152 millimeters, and a Mini ITX motherboard by itself.
That is tiny.
Not even the chassis is 170 millimeters squared, because the Mini ITX board is squared. So like this chassis with the aluminum and everything is smaller than just a Mini ITX board. That's tiny. But like the thing that like we don't have to go too deep into this, but one of the interesting things is one, it doesn't support the IntelliTalk stock cooler. It's too tall. But then also like I'm curious if like these types of build are going to become more mainstream. Like can people get away with a Mini ITX or a Mini STX build with a SoC that has the GTX 1060 mobile chip baked in, and then you have desktop performance on something that's really tiny?
Well, it's possible. I mean, already with the processors now, I mean, it's supporting fully fledged normal desktop processors.
Right.
And we were talking about the 1050 just now, 75 watts. I mean, add a tiny little adapter, a power adapter at the back of it, and power up 1050, and you got yourself what 970 performance and an i7 in a tiny little form factor.
Right. Well, even with a GTX 1080, you don't even need a 450 watt power supply to power that with a 6700K. That's overclocked. Like
it's crazy.
Right.
Let me actually get some better shots for everyone to see.
Yeah. They're really power efficient at this point, and like it's not groundbreaking that Silverstone is releasing a new chassis, but like just with the mobile Pascal, with the power efficiency of everything, just getting like a small motherboard like that could literally support some of the highest end desktops that we have available today. Like even Zotac did this with their Magnus E980. Like they water cooled the CPU. Like it's a small little box, and then it's VR ready. And it's only going to get better because Pascal Mobile wasn't even released at that point.
But I think the coolest thing is that like the only comparison to this that I have is, let's say, an Intel NUC.
Yeah.
And I mean, those are usually running terrible processors, to be honest.
Yeah.
Their i3s or i5s U series, so they're dual core, maybe not even hyper-threading on them.
Yeah.
They've got DDR3 on most of them. This is now talking about like decent specs. You can have a 6700K. You can have, okay, you're probably not going to overclock it with the amount of thermal headroom you have here. But still, let's say a 6700 with 16 gigs of DDR4 and theoretically a 1060 in the size of a NUC.
Yeah.
You put a VESA mount on that thing, you strap it to the back of a monitor. That's crazy.
Which okay, we don't have this in the show notes or anything, but like how does that where's that put Steam in terms of like their Steam box or their Steam Link or like any of the hardware Steam was trying to sell, basically being like, you can use your powerful desktop in the other room and now you only need this little thing. And like, is that still necessary?
Well, I mean, yes and no.
Okay,
I mean, I think like Steambox was kind of like bad timing,
okay,
to be quite honest. I mean, there wasn't really like the best power efficiency in terms of like the size they're trying to do. Now we have that.
right.
But at the same time, I mean, like my system at home, 6700K, 1070, sure, it's a big system in my office, but then I've got wireless AC and I've got a Steam Link in my lounge.
True.
And I mean, a Steam Link is the size of an external hard drive.
Okay,
That's a lot smaller than this, and what's that pushing? It's 1080p 60. It's not 4K, but still, I mean, then you don't have to have a Steam Link.
fair enough.
I mean, sorry, a Steam Box. So I think in terms of a Steam Box, the principle of what a Steam Box is supposed to be, like your lounge PC or whatever,
Right.
I don't know. I don't think this is going to replace it. I think what this is cool for is even just office environments. I mean, now all of a sudden you can have a productivity PC, so 6700 with a 1070 maybe strapped to the back of a 4K monitor, and you can do video editing
Sure.
with no desktop to be seen.
That's true.
That's crazy. And I mean, sure, you'd say, well, what about storage capacity? It doesn't have that NAS.
That's true. Or an NVMe SSD. Like you
But I
can
mean, in
get
terms
those.
of
Yeah,
massive capacity.
that's true. Yeah, I mean everything's going to the cloud, whether it be local or external.
Yeah.
That's good. Cool. All right. Well, speaking of power efficient graphics cards, we have one last one for you guys. We have the Strix GTX 1060. That title is wrong, Byron.
Ah, my bad.
You're supposed to be manning the stream computer. All right. The 1066 gigabyte. So everything that you guys are seeing here today is going to be reviewed one way or the other. I don't think I'll have a chance to review the Vivo Move, but the graphics cards are definitely going into my test bench. Ah, that was satisfying. All right.
You're the first one, right?
What?
To open it.
I don't think so. This one looked like it was opened before by somebody else. Yeah, okay, so here's the backplate. Yeah, so another reviewer had this before me. But regardless, I'm still going to treat it like nothing. Just, okay. Manual, discs, World of Warship stuff. Nothing important. Extra foam. Extra foam. And then the 1060 that basically looks like every single other Strix card, no exception. They all look the same. Okay, so you have, the Asus Strix backplate with the RGB. That's, it is different. It's not RGB. What? Okay, that's different. That's okay. So this is still RGB. The front shroud is still RGB, but it looks like they removed the RGB from the backplate. That makes me sad. Has an 8-pin power connector. Has the triple wing bait fans, and then we have a DVI-D for output, as well as dual display port, as well as dual HDMI for them, and then also the fan headers on the back. So there we go.
I think the thing I like most about that is if you have, like, let's say an EK water block or something like that,
Okay.
and like, let's say there's a fan, or like, sorry, the N6T one, what's it called again?
The Kraken.
The Kraken.
Yep.
And now you've got a fan there. You don't have to try to route that through to your motherboard.
That's true.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah, you can just keep it on the actual card itself. So yes. There we go. Whatever. Okay, I just. Alright, I'll get back
He
to
did
that
not
line.
throw a 1060.
I did not throw the 1060, I threw the box. There's RGB at the top, it's fine. Yeah, it's, I don't know, I wish they would have put it on the backplate.
But I was under the impression that all the Strix cards were going to look the same. And I mean, now.
I thought they did too. I mean, at least from product shots from what I saw. And I mentioned that in my 1070 review. I guess I was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, they don't look the
There's
same.
already one that's different.
Well, I knew the 470 was definitely different. The 480 is the same triple
Size at least, yeah.
fan cooler, but I guess they left RGB out on the backplate.
And the 1060 has.
But you, what?
1060 Strix has
Has what?
RGB.
Yeah, but not on the backplate.
That's what I'm saying.
Whereas
yeah.
every other card did. So that's, I don't know about the 480. I haven't gotten that one yet. But like product shots don't show you that. Anyways.
Cool.
All right, so esports, Byron, this is your area of expertise. Let's get you talking on this a little bit.
Oh,
we
gosh.
had the Eve Tech Champions League happening here in South Africa over the past weekend. You and I got a chance to head over to that. What did you think? I'm not really familiar. Like, first of all, I'm not really familiar with esports. I like watched the League of Legends World Championships. Like, I know nothing about CS:GO. But then, secondly, like, you've told me horror stories of like esports in South Africa days gone by. So, what did you think about the ETech
Um,
ECL?
I thought it was pretty awesome, to be honest. I mean,
Okay.
look, there's definitely been an uptick in esports in South Africa in the past, let's say, year.
Even since I've been here, like it's been crazy. Like Telcom done a whole bunch of money. Whole
But
Foods
that was
started
this year.
supporting
That was
Arena.
all this year.
Yeah,
I
fantastic.
mean,
Yeah,
if you
fair
look at
enough.
just last year versus
Yeah,
this year, the Telkom DGL, which is the biggest kind of tournament league that happens in South Africa, the prize pool of all of the different tournaments in terms of Battlefield and Counter Strike and Dota, etc.,
yeah.
didn't even mass up to like let's say $500,000. Um,
Which would be like $300,000.
no, like
No,
$30,000.
$30,000. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
you drop a
now
zero.
then what happens is they bring out the Masters, which is R1 million. So let's say I don't know, like $75,000 somewhere there,
Yeah,
just for two titles. And since then, this has been growing. And now EveTech's come to party, and they had the EveTech Champions, and it was crazy cool. Like they actually took a section of their building and they've converted it now where there's a media press area. I really
right.
like that.
Yeah,
And then
it
they
was a
they
very cool, chill area for
yeah.
sure.
And then they also had an area where they set up 10 booths with systems for the players to use. And NavTV held the whole production. It was crazy cool. Like, I mean, we've just been getting step ups the whole time. We had Telcom last year, which was kind of the only thing we could look forward to, and it wasn't as good as it could have been.
Right.
Then what happened is Arena a few months back with ESWC, production was perfect. Like, there was nothing wrong to say about it.
Was
Now,
that at EGE?
that was at EG,
Okay.
yes.
And
And
you got a chance to go to that.
I went to that as well, and now I went to the ETech event, and it
Right.
was just as good, if not better. And I mean,
Then
this is
what
the
happened at
thing.
ESWC?
What do you mean?
Are you saying that the ECL is better than, or just as good as better than the ESWC? Not I'm not trying to put you in that position.
Don't go there. No,
But
look,
like
okay, I think yes, because this is the thing. It's now in terms of ESWC,
yeah.
it was way more people
Okay.
involved, and like they actually
I
had
mean,
a
Nav TV, like their production setup was like top notch.
it was, but this is the thing I'm getting at though is
Yeah.
that everyone is now stepping it up.
Right.
I mean, Telcom had their first Masters event, and
Yeah.
there were a few complaints. People were complaining about the way that the desk where they were casting from kind of looked like the show Takalani Sesame, which is kind of bad.
I
It's
don't
like
know what that is.
the Muppets.
Okay.
And the thing is, the show was good though.
Okay.
And then what happened is, Arena came on, and they did a show that was even better. And now these guys from ECL, they're doing a show that's even better. And this is a good thing. Everyone is just improving the scene every single time. And I can only see it getting better now. We have dedicated venues popping up.
Right.
This is a dedicated venue. This is not just something for a once-off event. And it's going to happen more and more and more. And now we've got another venue that opened up in Boksburg, in Johannesburg.
Okay.
They're busy building the upstairs section as well now for esports. So I'm really happy to see this, and this was a really great event. From the production to the actual physical location, it was safe. There was secure parking. We had chips and monsters to drink while we were sitting there. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really an awesome event.
Okay, and then I have to ask, what's with Bravado winning everything? I
It's kind of like so overseas we've got Fnatic and we've got Navi and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bravado's kind of like become one of those. I mean, they've been doing amazingly internationally even at this stage.
Yeah.
So it's taken them time. I mean, they're basically a decade old.
Okay.
They've been getting better and better. They went overseas. They had failures in previous events. I mean, sure they won locally, went somewhere else, and then not always came last, but they didn't do as well. And now all of a sudden, I think
They
with
placed second at the thing in Dubai.
yeah,
Right?
which is crazy. I mean, the pressure of what Masters has done now is it's built all these teams up that they're not just playing against randoms anymore. There's money on the line. There's sponsorships on the line, and Bravado has they've proven themselves. I
Right.
mean, Bravado came second, I think, at the Counter Strike, and
Yeah.
they're now moving on to the championships in China later in the year, and
Okay.
that is awesome. And it's not just there. I mean, there's multiple events now, and it's not just them. White Rabbit Gaming went over, Carbon went over. I think it was Aperture as well that went over. There were no, sorry, at DC.
Damage control.
Damage Control.
Right.
There's a bunch of teams in South Africa that are now proving themselves on an international level. It was
Yeah.
always just this case where everyone was complaining that like, oh well, Bravado's going to win anyway, and they're going to go overseas and fail. and that's not the case anymore.
It didn't happen this time.
This team is proving
And
themselves.
they won quite a bit of money at the Dubai event. From what I heard.
And the cool thing is, I mean, it's not just them. I mean,
Yeah.
there was the Joker, one of the guys in Hearthstone.
Okay.
He just flat out annihilated everyone. Went home with like 175,000 rand for himself.
Fantastic.
That's more than any of the players that win Masters later this year will get individually.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm happy to see this. I mean, South African esports it's growing, and it's not just growing. We actually, I mean, look, it's one thing to have more events and bad events.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. We now have internationally recognized events where our teams aren't just competing against each other. They're going overseas and they are destroying the competition, and that's awesome.
Yeah. So, being a foreigner, I'm not really sure what games are played locally. So, can you just give us a broad overview of like what are the major esports titles that take place here in
Well,
South Africa?
The main two are Dota and Counter Strike. Definitely. Okay. I mean, in terms of the prize pool and the amount of tournaments.
Okay.
I'd say Dota has a lot of events, but Counter Strike has just as many recently. There's definitely been more international events happening.
But isn't CS:GO less supported than Dota internationally?
Yeah, but I mean, it probably even goes down to player base. I mean, look at TI. The international, like $20 million for the prize pool.
Right.
That's kind of where it comes from. It's the viewership. Everything just keeps growing. But it's not just those two. I mean, we have Hearthstone. StarCraft used to be quite big. Unfortunately, it's died down quite a lot lately. Overwatch is exploding.
Right.
It's definitely going to be one of the major esports titles in South Africa within the next few years, hopefully.
Okay.
We had Heroes of the Storm. It grew exponentially last year and then just died. It literally just disappeared. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of upcoming games. I mean, there's Paragon. People are getting interested in it, but we don't yet know what will happen with it. So I think the main ones definitely, though, it's definitely Counter Strike and Dota.
Okay.
Hearthstone kind of comes to that, and then it's even Battlefield. There's a big Battlefield and Call of Duty communities.
Okay.
I think they're kind of just like.
Are they more console or is that still PC?
It's a mix. I mean, in terms of Battlefield, it's more PC oriented, and then in terms of Counter Strike, sorry, I keep forgetting. Call of Duty it is split, but unfortunately, like the World Championships and that is on console.
Okay.
So look, there's a lot of communities. I mean, we have a smart community. We have Heroes of the Storm. Like I said, we have WoW players, even with the terrible ping. Like
it's still League of Legends as well. Like,
look, unfortunately, with League of Legends, it just didn't get adopted as amazingly in South Africa for some reason. And we have a big player base. We just don't have as big a competitive scene in terms of the prize pool.
Right.
Like we still have a lot of competitive players. We've got Premier Division players, first, second division, that kind of thing. In terms of all the leagues, it's just there isn't a lot of money supporting League of Legends in South Africa. So even some of the LoL players, they moved over to Heroes of the Storm when there was money, and when there was more money in Dota, they moved over there. I mean, you gotta think about it that I can love a game and be good at it, but if I make no money out of it, what's the point?
Yeah,
you gotta.
That seems to be the biggest issue that I've seen from hearing all of the player interviews as well as all of the interviews with the brand managers and people who are supporting all of these esports teams is just basically like these guys either have to go to school or they have to work. Like there's no way that they can put in the amount of hours that it takes to be recognized on an international level.
But I mean, sorry, even going back to what you're saying just now with Bravado, this is a team that's gone overseas, I think, twice this year already, and now they need to go again.
Yeah.
These guys have day jobs.
Right.
Like
Well, I watched an interview with them. I think it's 2 of them are still in school. 2 of them are full time, and then 1 of them is working a job. So
but this is the thing. That's not the scene overseas.
Yeah.
I mean, in other countries, that is their job.
Right.
They spend 8 hours a day boot camping, and they have fitness in between and what all else. But this is the thing. We have guys that have 9 to 5 jobs and are still wrecking international teams.
That's true.
Which is awesome. And I mean, it can only grow from there. I mean, the second these guys have enough finances to be able to do this full time, I'm just going to see them improve.
Right.
I mean, they're going to be able to wake up, play Dota, play Counter Strike. They don't have to go to work anymore. And I hope that happens.
That would be good. All right, so we have one more esports title to talk about. I think the esports section is just going to be basically on a week-to-week basis, whatever happens. So you talk about this because I actually have no idea who this guy is.
Okay, so Red Eye, basically, he was one of the hosts.
Is that how you say that, Red Eye? Okay, because the way I've been thinking it's pronounced is Re-D-Yay. I had no idea.
Well, look, either way, so this was one of the major guys in terms of TI. It was one of
Okay.
the if not the actual what do you call it, the spokesperson. I'm trying to think of what the right word is. Sorry, presenter
Okay.
for the international. He's now flying to South Africa for the Masters to host it. That
Okay.
is
That's
crazy. I mean,
fantastic.
this is what I'm getting at, is that last year we had players go overseas and fail, and
Yeah.
that was all we had to say. And nothing against them. I mean, they were the best South Africans at the time.
Right.
Now we have players in South Africa going overseas and competing, and then we even have people overseas taking an interest in the local scene.
Right.
We had this guy coming over to host our competition.
He was here earlier this year,
He
right?
was basically to do the announcement of Masters.
Okay.
But now the crazy thing is, we're talking about a tournament with $20 million that he's hosting,
Right.
and then he flies out to South Africa for one, let's say $75,000.
Right.
Why are we getting the international scene paying attention? Because all the stuff that's happening. I mean, we are exponentially growing, and it's a good thing. There's nothing negative about him coming here. It only means international people are going to focus on it. We're going to have more international viewers because he already has a massive following.
Yeah.
So last year, where some of the streams for DGL would only have 50 people watching if it was a random Hearthstone game, that kind of thing. Now all of a sudden we got guaranteed thousands of people are going to be watching the Masters.
Yeah.
Hopefully tens of thousands of people.
That's true. I actually want to take a quick look and see what if my computer would work. Okay. I guess not.
Do you want to Google it? Yeah.
No, I guess it's just that. No, I just want to see what EFTech their viewership was for the ECL. Like they grew tremendously in terms of subscriber base over the past weekend. But let's no audio. Yeah, like the over 14,000 views on their finals day. Like
That's
on
massive.
YouTube gaming, that's not even Twitch streaming. Like it's 16,000 views on the second day. Yeah, like that's
It's
actually,
growing.
that's fantastic, at least for a South African stream. Yeah.
And look, I think it's only going to keep getting better.
Right.
I mean, at this stage, that's not all that South Africa has in store for it. There's still more events coming up. I mean, I spoke to one of the directors from Nav TV, and they said this was kind of like the tip of the iceberg. They
Okay.
said they've got another announcement happening later this year, almost 10 times as big, and apparently that's not even the biggest thing they're working on. It's
Fair
crazy,
enough.
and I'm happy to see this. To be honest, I mean, look, last year I was involved in terms of the tournament scene, and this year I kind of stepped back a lot to help out with a lot of other things,
Yeah.
and I'm just so excited to see it going. Like, I'm really happy this is happening.
Cool. And then I think we'll have more talking about esports later. I mean, Rage is coming up in less than a month. And Rage is the largest Southern Hemisphere tech expo.
It's basically E3 in South Africa. It's the easiest way to describe
Is it that big? Because I didn't get to go last year, so I actually have little
Well, I mean,
idea of what.
I went to E3.
Yeah.
I've been to Rage.
Yeah.
E3 is probably, let's say, 3 times the physical size.
Okay.
But it's as good in terms of what the content of it is. We still have some years international announcements that happen there. We have all the developers and producers and that kind of thing that fly out.
Okay.
I mean, we have 2K games that come. We have Activision that come and set up. It's not just South Africans showing off their games. I mean, we have events like that, but Rage is kind of like the big daddy of all the events where everything is announced in South Africa, and it's awesome. I mean, I think it's roughly 50,000 people, which is just as big as E3.
Okay.
In terms
Fair
of the feet, it's just a smaller venue, and it's pretty cool.
All right. Cool. All right. So I think that concludes it for the topics that we had listed. We're gonna open it up for Q&A for just a little bit, maybe 10 minutes, depending on the volume of questions. Maybe not that long. So if you guys have any questions in the YouTube chat, feel free to type them, and we'll answer them. So yeah, anything.
Are there any questions already?
I don't know.
Did you check previously?
I mean, I've been looking, but I haven't. One thing that we didn't talk about, PlayStation coming out tomorrow. Supposedly the announcement for Neo and the Slim.
The Slim, sorry. Yeah.
Mini, whatever. Do you know anything? I don't pay attention to consoles in the slightest. I haven't owned one since PS2, so.
That's quite a while. Look, the only things I read was that basically the Neo was going to be slightly more powerful, but not as powerful as Xbox's Scorpio. Yeah. So I think it's just like a refresh.
Why would you name
Realistically,
it Neo if it's not the best?
it's not the one. It's not the Xbox One. It's not the one.
What?
I'm sorry.
That was a bad pun.
Super
was that
bad.
even a pun? Can that be cuss? Anyways, moving on.
Moving on. I think it's mainly just a refresh because of VR. With the
Right.
PSVR coming out,
But
it works. PSVR works on the standard PS4.
Right.
It's just how are you going to take it further? I mean,
Right.
we're already talking about like 5-year-old technology practically on the PlayStation 4
Right.
because it wasn't even the best at its
Which
time.
is the interesting thing that I've seen is like everybody's talking, oh, this is just a, this is the PlayStation 4 refresh, this is the Xbox One refresh. But if you look at console development cycles, like this is a new console generation. Actually, it's a new console generation. This is prime time for. So Byron, we have a first question. Are you Team Green or Team Red?
Okay, so I've owned
Better Red, rather. Sorry, that's their new
Better Red.
marketing hashtag.
I've owned both. I've always kind of just changed every single time the latest one comes out and I could afford it. I'll be honest, I kind of lean towards green.
That's Razer. Okay, so Razer's not.
I don't know. It's like maybe it's a color preference thing. It is my favorite color, but you know what it is.
What's your
Alias is Green Hydra. So
there you go.
the thing is, like, I don't know. First Nvidia card that kind of like wiped me away was the 8800.
Okay.
It kind of just changed gaming.
Wait, which one? The 8800 GT, GTS,
GTX.
Okay.
Because let's be honest, I mean, it got refreshed like 3 times as well. There was
Right.
the 1900 and the
Yeah,
GTS 250, that kind of thing. I think Nvidia's had the biggest announcements for me.
Okay.
Like changed the game. I mean, I had an X800 back in the day, which was a AMD card, Pixel Shader 2B, and then like I don't know, it was like a week later or whatever, 6800 Ultra comes out, Pixel Shader 3. Nvidia kind of always had this thing of like we like one up in AMD.
Right.
Although I think like DirectX 10 was on AMD first, if I remember correctly. I think it was like HD2 series. I can't exactly remember.
Okay.
Still, it's just like the cards that mattered to me were generally the Nvidia ones.
Right.
480, 980.
Both of the last two cards that I've personally purchased and then kept have been AMD. The R7? No, R9 270X and then the R7 370. Those have been the two cards that I purchased and said I'm going to keep those.
But it's also because you're not a gamer.
No, it was. So when I purchased the 270X, it was at the $150 price point that I had, and it was the best one. Like Nvidia
for its price.
Yeah, Nvidia didn't have a competing offering at $150 at that point. So, like, yeah.
Look, it's true. I mean, I actually, when I first got into mining cryptocurrency, we bought 6 R9 270s.
Okay.
And they were literally like best bang for the buck kind of thing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've purchased enough AMD cards to not say that I haven't used them.
Yeah.
I've just also had issues. I mean, every time I had Crossfire, I had microstud. I had 6850 Crossfire, 6950 Crossfire, 270 Crossfire. Can't remember what else it was.
I tried the 480 Crossfire.
Yeah, I even remember since back, I had a 2600 Pros in Crossfire, and it was terrible.
Right.
So I haven't really had that many SLI systems. It's just I've had issues with AMD.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really lean one way or the other. It's just basically like, what does the data say? And since I get to use every card for review, like I'll take the best one. I'll take a 1080. Like I'll take if Vega beats a 1080, I'll take the Vega. Okay. But if I'm spending my own money, I'm getting an RX 470. Maybe a 460. I'm not sure I'd spend enough to get a 470.
Well, what do you play?
Nothing. My 970M is honestly good enough for me.
Exactly.
I'm okay with dropping the detail settings in my gaming. Alright, so next question. Will the MSI GE62 VR give 60 FPS in all games at max settings, no MSAA or other things?
1060, right?
Yeah, the desktop or the mobile 1060. Not all games. Some games will hammer it. Like Witcher 3, I think, still punishes the GTX 1060. Like it's not going to get 60 FPS with or without Hairworks, as far as I know. But it's close. It's honestly close enough that I don't think it'll be an issue. I mean, most games will probably be closer to that 70, 80 threshold than the 60 FPS. I think it's a safe bet. Like if you just want 60 FPS at 1080p, the 1060 is going to be good enough at this point.
Would you say that it's a good assumption to look at the benchmarks of the 1063 gig edition and kind of say that's sort of what you're going to have.
I don't know. I haven't benchmarked the 1063 gig edition.
But you're getting one, right?
Tomorrow,
Supposedly,
if the courier shows up.
So hang out for that maybe. And
yeah. But I think the 1063 gigabyte is less than 90% of the performance of a 1060.
Which the mobile one's supposed to be 90%, right?
For my testing, it was 90% of the add-in partner cards, add-in board partner. That's what I'm trying to say. So like the MSI Gaming X versus the MSI GE62 VR.
Then you're also speaking about generally like worse processor in the mobile as well.
Yeah, so the 6700 HK. I mean that shouldn't actually make a difference.
What I mean is like looking at a 3 gig edition desktop wise, it's probably going to be pretty similar performance in terms of like the notebook one.
I can't say for sure, but it should be close. Yeah. Will Rockstar's games show up at the PS4 Neo event? I've actually heard rumors of Grand Theft Auto 6.
Really?
Heard rumors means I read a byline on Twitter. I just scroll through.
I don't know myself, to be honest.
I don't care. Okay. All right. We'll give you guys 2 more minutes for another question. Any other questions, and then we'll sign out.
I wonder how much telecom I'm paying.
For Red Eye?
Probably a ton of cash, to be honest.
But I mean, if they're putting,
but it's worth it.
But if they're only putting R1,000,000 into the prize pool total, like how much are they actually playing that guy? Do you think they're paying a significant portion of R1,000,000?
Maybe that's something to discuss. So someone asked, how much is Telkom probably paying Red Eye?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know, but I mean, let's put it this way: all of the money that went into Dota, only 25% of what people gave to Valve actually went to the prize pool. 75% of it went to other expenses.
Okay.
What does production cost? Ton of money.
Right.
A ton, like way more than the amount of money in the prize pool, and that's the thing. So sure, maybe there's R1,000,000 for the prize pool. I can guarantee the actual production of this event is going to top R1,000,000. But that's every event. I mean, do you think League of Legends only has $2 million $2 million production? No chance.
Right.
So
especially when they contract Imagine Dragons to produce a song for them and then perform at the
Exactly.
I owned a 7850K. How about a little bottleneck, a GTX 1070? I actually don't know. I've never looked into CPU bottlenecking, but that's about to change, so I will let you know soon.
You got a video lined up for that, right?
I have ideas. I have ideas that are forming with parts in my bathtub. My favorite game, Final Fantasy VIII, bar none. I replayed it.
I agree.
I replayed it on my trip to Computex.
Really?
Yeah. Because I have the Steam version, so I replayed that during my long layovers. Still enjoy it. Although it lost a lot of its luster. I would say second to that is Final Fantasy X. I haven't replayed that one yet.
Actually replayed 8, I think about 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was pretty cool. Do you remember the Cactus GF?
Yeah. Not Tonberry. Cactuar.
Oh my gosh. I can't remember the name, but
it's Cactuar.
With the 9,999 damage needles thing.
It's Cactuar.
I went nuts.
Tonberry's the little green guy with the knife that stabbed you.
I think we can end it there.
Yeah. So it actually, as copycat as this sounds, like my dad always used to say, "Same bat time, same bat channel." Like whenever we would have an appointment at my allergy doctor where I'd have to go weekly, he would say, "I'll see you same bat time, same bat channel," because my dad grew up on the original Batman where they used to say that. And so when Linus says it, it's just like I have flashbacks and like I want to say that now, but we need a different sign off. So we actually put no thought into this. What do you think our sign off should be?
See you next week.
That's so lame. That's so lame. But
rolling out. B-roll.
No, that's awful. Okay, we're gonna end the stream here, and I promise that there will be a better sign out next week.
See you guys then.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.